Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Luke here, and today I'm bringing you another gaming computer PC build. This time it's going to be a £600 one, but this setup and build is actually going to cost you £30 less than the £600 mark, so you can make some improvements if you want to, but this gaming computer should last you 3 or 4 years, maybe even 5, and it should still work perfectly fine as long as none of the parts break. Now, this is not a complete build, so you do have to also buy a monitor, keyboard, mouse, but this does include a copy of Windows. So let's get into this. For the case, I went for the Zalman Z380X mid-tower case. This is a sleek looking case. It has a little side panel window here. It's black, it's got enough ports and it's big enough for the motherboard, and it looks pretty nice. And it only costs £29.83. So it's a cheap, sleek gaming PC tower, and that's what we're looking for, and it's cheap, so we have put more money into everything else. Moving on now to a slightly less important part of the build, but still fairly important, is the optical drive. I've gone for the Samsung 24X SH224DB DVD-RW SATA OEM drive. This costs £11.79, and this will just be used for installing Windows and then any games you want to install or any DVDs, music, or anything you want to do on this computer, you can do with this drive. And it's fairly cheap, so that's fine. We don't want anything too expensive for this. But just under £12, this is a pretty nice optical drive. Moving on now to the power supply, I went for the Corsair 500W Builder Series CX80 plus Bronze ATX power supply. This is 500 watts, and it will do everything we want, and we may be able to make some upgrades later in the future if you want to, because we'll have enough watts to do that. It only costs £42.88, and that is fairly cheap for a Corsair. Corsair, one of the top brands for PSUs, and this is a decent one. I think I'm getting a 600 or 750 Corsair Builder Series power supply for my computer, so this is good enough for our computer. Now moving on to the motherboard, I've gone for the Asus M5A97 Ali R2.0 AM3 Plus socket AMD 970 DDR3 ATX. This motherboard is an ATX motherboard, so it will fit in our case, and if we look at the specifications here, it has a max RAM size of 32GB, and it's got the 1 times AM3 Plus socket, which is the processor socket. So that is all good and dandy, and it costs us £59.98, and it is Windows 8 ready, as you can see in this little picture here. £59.98 for this. It's nothing really, and it's the motherboard. It's one of the main parts for your build. It's what brings everything together. So, gotta spend a decent amount on that just to get a decent motherboard. Now moving on to the processor, I've gone for the AMD FX 4300 3.8 GHz AM3 Plus socket 8MB cache retail box processor. This is £74.50, and that is including VAT, and it is free delivery on ebuy.com. And this is basically all you'll ever need for gaming, but it is 3.8 GHz core clock speed, so that is really good. But if you were to spend like £9 more, I'd recommend getting the AMD FX 6300 Black Edition 6 core, 3.5 GHz clock speed, but that can be overclocked to 4.1 GHz, so it's faster than the 4300. And it has an 8MB level 3 cache and a 6MB level 2 cache, which just gives it the extra boost it needs for gaming. And it's AM3 Plus socket again, and it is the same. It takes up the same watts as the 4300. So if you want to spend a bit more, I'd recommend getting that. Moving on to the RAM now, I've gone for some Corsair CMX 8G X3 and 2B 1600C9 XMS3 8GB. It's two 4GB sticks, so it's a dual core, dual channel RAM, DDR3, 1600MHz, so it's quite fast. And this costs us £65.56. I was going to go for some 4GB RAM, but then I realised that with everything else in the build, I could afford to get 8GB and still have a bit of money left over for any upgrades in the future, or just save up for upgrades. So 8GB is more than enough, and it just gives you that extra boost in your games. And dual channel is even better, because if one of your sticks breaks, you still have 4GB left. Moving on now to our graphics card, I've gone for the EVGA GeForce GTX 660 Superclocked NVIDIA graphics card. It costs £151.99, including VAT. This is on scan.co.uk, and this graphics card comes free with the game Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and it's a 2GB graphics card, and this has 960 cores. It's got quite a lot of megahertz in speed, so this will last a while and be able to run games 1080p, playable frame rates. This computer will be able to run most games 1080p, or if not all games 1080p, on around 60 FPS. So that is nice. And then for the hard drive now, I've chosen the Seagate 500GB Barracuda set at 7,200 RPM, 16MB 3.5-inch hard drive. This costs £37.99, but I would recommend, if you want to spend £5 more, get the terabyte version of this, which is the Seagate 1TB Barracuda set at 6GB, 64MB 7,200 RPM hard drive. This costs £42.99, so £5 more than the 500GB one, and you get double the amount of hard drive space, and it is a pretty nice hard drive. It's fast, so it will load up pretty quick, and the 1TB will just give you that extra boost for games. You can store more, and you can use Windows on it. But I would recommend as well, if you have like £80 more onto this build, to get an SSD of about 120GB to install Windows on, just so it boots up and closes faster, and then your hard drive can just be used for everything else. Moving on now to the last part, well, the last main part is the sound card. Now, I've seen quite a lot of PC builds that don't include a sound card because it's not a complete build, but I decided to go and put a sound card into this just because you need surround sound, or at least good sound, and just get speakers or something along those lines, but you do need a sound card to actually play the sound. So I've went for the StarTech.com 7.1 channel PCI digital surround sound adapter. This is only £12.51 on dabs.com, and this is basically everything you need for a good multimedia experience. This will give you 7.1 surround sound, and it is pretty good surround sound, crisp, clear, high definition, all that kind of stuff. So recommend getting this. And now for the last part, but it's Windows. I've chosen Windows 8.1 64-bit operating system DVD English, and it's the OEM version, and this costs £69.82. Now, some of you will go, why have you went for the OEM version, not the full version? And if you do ask that, here's to answer that question. I've went for the OEM version just because of the price for this build. I couldn't put Windows in for the full version as well as being under £600. If I didn't put Windows in at all, we could have gone for maybe a better processor or case or something like that, but I decided to put Windows in for you. But OEM, basically, if you don't know, compared to full, it hasn't got as many features, but it can only be installed onto one motherboard. But if that motherboard does break, then I believe you can phone up Microsoft and tell them all about it, and they will fix it for you, send you another copy, or so I've heard by everyone else who's broken their OEM or their motherboard by mistake after installing Windows. But I'd recommend getting the full, seeing as that has all the features, and it can be installed on as many motherboards as you like, and it only costs double this price. So say if you broke your motherboard once or it burnt out, then you'd have to pay this again, whereas you could just get the full one and just install it straight away. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope, well, no, wait, sorry. I've made a little notepad spreadsheet here. So the case, optical drive, PSG, motherboard, GPU, hard drive, CPU 1, CPU 2, RAM, sound card, and Windows 8.1. For everything and the AMD FX 4300, this build will cost £561.85. But if you want the AMD FX 6300 instead of the AMD FX 4300, then it will cost you £570.53. And with 2 more cores but 0.3 GHz less than the 4300, then the 6300 is the best option, since you can fairly easily overclock it to the 4300 clock speed. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope to see you soon, and peace.